Okay, hi. How are you?
I hope everyone didn't just hear my toddler scream.
I think I think that was the first thing that we I think
Whoops.
that's the first thing we all heard. That was so cute though.
He's just excited about life,
Oh,
as
he's like,
usual.
"What's happening?" Yes, yes.
So, hey.
Hey, happy Wednesday. How are
Yeah,
you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm good. It's been a really busy couple of weeks, but we're
Mhm,
hanging in there and,
mhm.
doing all the things, and I cannot believe it's October.
Oh my gosh, I know. Hi, Stephanie. Yay! I know. I can't believe it's October. I keep thinking, because my daughter was 3 months premature, and so she's technically one, but her official due date had been November 2nd, and I'm like, oh,
Oh,
she's
yeah.
not like mentally one until a while from now, and then I realized it's October
Yeah,
and
so
it's
she's
just a
it's
month
pretty close.
away, and I was
A
like,
month
what?
away, and you're like,
Wait a minute.
"Oh." You're like, "I guess we're getting closer."
Because she keeps
Yeah.
doing these crazy things. Like she figured out how to open the gate on her sheer strength. Yeah,
Wow.
she doesn't use the mechanism. She just shakes it until it opens.
Oh
And I
my
was like,
gosh.
"Why are you so strong? You're so little. What are you talking about?" And then I realized she's not that little.
Right? She's, like, way big. She's so
Yeah.
cute too. She's so cute. I love it. I love her. She's so cute. She's big
Yeah,
eyes.
she's the
She's got big eyes. Oh, well, good. Well, I'm glad you've had some celebrations recently
best. Hmm. Yeah.
so that's awesome. That's so good. Um, and it's October, which means before we jump into the mental health thing, we just launched at Nectarfull our first ever team promo. So
Yeah.
are you excited? I'm
I'm
excited.
really excited.
I'm
I
so
can't
excited.
wait. I can't
I
wait.
know. I know. When we started Nectarfull, somebody, my therapist actually told me to pray for the people that God would bring us as clients and
Mhm.
like not to panic or worry but pray for them. And so my prayer going into this promo is that that message of
Mm.
what we want to help people do and achieve in life just reaches their hearts and encourages them to come hang out with us, come see us, come book appointments with us. At worst
Yeah.
case, it's a 30-minute free discovery call. So
Right.
like
Right.
the worst case
And at
scenario
that point,
is
there's no commitment, right?
exactly, yeah. Worst case scenario, you spend 30 minutes talking with an awesome Nectarful coach, and then you don't have to do anything.
Or you could
Or yes, or
buy
you
our
call
fall
them.
promo, which is at a huge discount.
Yes, $295 for 3 sessions with any of
Mhm.
our coaches, and, that can introduce you to, what life coaching can do for you. Because
Mhm.
I think, I put my part of my story, I've got we all have crazy long stories, and I tried to make it as short as I could, but on our website, for the promo, I put part of, like, what drew me to starting hiring a coach,
Mhm.
and a lot of it was some of the things that we're going to talk about today with mental health. It mental health both like kept me from pursuing coaching, but then it's also what was the precipice to like push me towards it as well.
Yeah.
And I put in there, just what life coaching did for me, and I know so many of our coaches have kind of that same story about, they've either experienced coaching or they've been doing it just naturally forever, and so
Mhm.
they just knew that it was a calling. And gosh, whoever gets to work with any of our coaches, I'm just so excited for them
I
because
am
you guys
too.
are
I'm too.
awesome. You guys
I
are
want
awesome.
to work with all of our coaches.
I know. Yes. We need to have like peer
Hmm.
round robin coaching, like
That
peer
would be
coaching
great.
circles. Yeah. I love it. I love it. So you are a mental wellness coach,
Yes.
and you have this awesome way. I love it. She's got a everybody anybody who's watching this. She has a great Facebook group where it's open to people who want to join, where you share wisdom and a strong faith base in mental health and like supporting each other in that way. And as I was thinking about today, the way that I was describing it, both online and when talking to people, it was that we are, there is a mental health stigma. I loved that word that you used in the
Yeah.
church because it's a challenge for both the people the congregation, the people who are attending the churches.
Mhm.
It's challenging for the leadership for them personally when they have mental health struggles. Like, are
Mhm.
they allowed to show it? Are they allowed to talk about it? Are they, how hard is that for them? And where do they get their support? And then for the church leadership to be able to love on their congregation when they're
Mhm.
having mental health challenges, like what does that look like? And so I just knew when I read that this was something you wanted to talk about, that it would just be right, perfect for you. And so,
Yes.
what kind of like pinged your heart to say like we should talk about this?
I think probably because of all the negative stigma that my husband and I faced when he was a pastor. Um, if I could just tell a quick story, I'm not going to
Oh.
get too in depth or anything, but we were interviewing with a church, and at least at this church, the way you interview is like they just like throw you to the wolves. You like get up on stage and
You're
like
like, hi.
introduce yourself to the
Yeah.
congregation and stuff. And so we introduced ourselves, and my husband was interviewing for their youth pastor position. And
Okay.
so we shared, because I help him. I've always done youth ministry too myself, and so we're kind of like a package. And so we shared like what our heart is with youth ministry, and really like the crisis of today is mental illness. And so we shared that, and we shared that something about like suicide rates being on the rise with teens and stuff like that. And we shared that with the entire congregation,
Hmm.
and we had one of their students come up to us after the service was over, and like it really resonated with her, and she was like, I've been suicidal forever, and like this meant so much for me to hear from you guys, and like I hope you become our youth pastors. And then we went through the weekend, and once we were back home, we kind of had like a quick Zoom with the pastor and the associate pastor, and the lead pastor. Um,
Whoa.
I can't do anything but
I'm
laugh about it now.
I am imagining. I just am like
But
preparing myself,
so
not make any faces.
my husband is very open about this. He had
Yeah.
attempted suicide as a teenager, and so he
Mhm.
understands that
Yeah.
um, very well. And this pastor, I'm sorry, this pastor looked at him and he said, "How can I hire you and trust that you won't just kill yourself and leave these kids behind?" um,
What?
and then he looked at me and he said, "You mentioned that you're on medication." And he was like, "Psychotropic medication is intense." And I was like, "It's none of
Wow.
your business, first of all. But yes, I am on medication because I'm open about that. And I'm
Yeah.
not really trying to hide that fact.
Mhm.
And I work with a doctor doing that." And
Right.
Well, I'm on medication for my blood pressure, but I'm doing all these things so that I'll be able to get off this medication. Are you doing anything to get off your medication? And I was like, well, yeah, I'm doing a lot of stuff. However, it's
Mhm.
actually a hormonal imbalance and blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
all these things about like why the medication is physically necessary. Um,
Mhm.
and
Wow.
yeah, it was just crazy that we had to defend our own mental health. And then when we shared with him that, hey, you have people in your congregation that are struggling, and they came up to us like, how do you feel about that? And he was like, oh, that's just that family, they're messed up. And I was like,
Wow.
what's happening?
I right? It's like one of those Twilight Zone moments where you're like, "Where am I?"
Yeah.
Is he
So
actually
that,
saying these things?
yeah, that
Mm.
was the worst experience we've ever had.
Yeah.
Um, and albeit to say, we did not work for that church.
Yeah.
um, but it really meant a lot to us, and almost showed us how even more important it is to be open um, about mental
Mm.
health in the church, especially a, a pastor being open with their congregation.
Mhm.
I attended a church many years ago where my pastor was open with the fact that he had bipolar 2. Um,
Mm.
and he did an entire sermon series on, I think it was mostly like depression and feelings of down and sorrow and stuff.
Mm.
And he
Mhm.
talked a lot about Psalm 43, I think. It's a psalm where David, it's just lamenting.
Yeah.
There's so much pain written in the
Yeah.
Bible.
Yeah.
Um, and and the pastor went through and talked about how he uses that psalm when he's in his really
Mm.
depressed seasons, and that meant so much to me as a younger person who struggled with mental health,
Mm.
to see that you can still love the Lord
Yeah.
and be loved by the Lord when struggling with your mental health.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, yeah, this is just kind of something I've always been an advocate of.
Mm.
It's like seeking help for mental health issues,
Yeah.
especially Christians, because there's also another sort of stigma of, or not stigma, but like belief that, like, well, you have mental health issues because you're not spending enough time with the Lord, or because you don't have enough faith in the Lord, things like that.
Yeah.
Um, and you would never say that to somebody with diabetes, right? Like,
Right.
oh, well, you would
Right.
be cured of diabetes. Well, some people might say that, but they would
Yeah.
be wrong.
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
you
Mhm.
need
Yes.
insulin because you didn't read your Bible yesterday,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and
Exactly.
putting
And
it
how
in those
naive
terms
of that.
sounds
How
crazy.
naive
Um,
is that
yeah.
to not understand that there are things that are physiological about
Yeah.
our bodies. And yes, we can blame all the chemicals that are in our food. We can blame the
Mhm.
air. We can blame, but it's because we live in a broken world.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
Broken
not because we've chosen to have mental health struggles, right? We live in a broken world, and whether it's self-created or whether it's physiological or whether
Mhm.
it is real to
Mhm.
people, no matter what side of that spectrum they're on. And and so in either capacity, they need help. And in most cases, it's
Right.
medication.
Yeah.
And why not? Like, we have been facing this. Um, Melinda actually wrote a really good blog article on our blog about medication.
I saw that.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and so um, I wish there was a way. I think there might be a way. At some point, I'll
We
learn
could
all.
put the link in the comments maybe.
Oh yeah, we'll put that.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Like, we'll put a link in the comments to the blog article that Melinda wrote on medication, because that's been one of her struggles as well, and she talks very openly about her struggles with anxiety,
Mhm.
and it's and how impactful it is, and how in the church it can feel embarrassing to
Mhm.
talk about that. Whereas, like, we encourage people to talk about their sins, and we encourage people to talk about their weaknesses, and we encourage people to
Mm,
talk about their the struggles that they have with following God's word.
right.
And but like you said, there's so much pain in the Bible that um, they didn't ask for. if that
Right.
makes sense, right? They
Yeah.
didn't, the people in the Bible who, you know, who are portrayed as having, major struggle where God is their source of hope.
Right.
They cling to that as he is their source, the source of hope. Um, that is what we forget, I think, when we have conversations like that pastor had with you guys.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree.
Oh, so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I, you know, I've been on medication since I was 19. I'm
Mhm.
44, 44. Shh. That sounds really old to say out loud. I'm
Not.
almost 30. It's almost 6 months away from 45, but, you know, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had a family member once that, it was such an awesome conversation where they were like, "I just don't wanna be on medication my whole life. I don't wanna be on medication my whole life. I don't wanna start medication."
Mhm.
And my answer was, "Well, if you have to be, you have to be." Like, it's kinda like the heart medication or the blood pressure
Right.
medication. Like, if you
Right.
have to function, it's okay. I said, "But," I said, "you should never do or should try to not do medication without therapy, or maybe it's coaching, or maybe it's something else," right? You have to
Yeah.
have something else that's helping you to learn how to walk through episodes or flare
Right.
ups or things like that, right? But
Yeah.
you can't learn those things when you're not medicated,
That's very
right?
true. Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, and not that people with mental health struggles are toddlers, but it reminds me of my son when he's having a tantrum, a toddler tantrum. I can't teach him anything in that
No.
moment. His brain and his body need to be calm in order for him to learn. And so if we can't get our brains to be calm, then
Mhm.
we're not ever going to learn coping skills, right?
Totally.
And so yeah, it is super important to get stable on medication and seek therapy so that you can have the skills. And if people truly don't want to be on medication their whole lives, that is integral. You need
Yeah.
skills
Yeah.
um, to be able to live without medication.
Mhm.
And something that just I mention often to people who are hesitant to go on medication is that there are lots of natural supplements and things to try as
Mhm.
well. I take some of them in addition to my prescription um,
Mhm.
medications, and it can be really helpful. They can help each other. Um, so there's
Yeah.
that, and I've worked with some teenagers as well whose
Mhm.
parents don't want them on prescription medication, but their parents are okay if they go pick up a supplement at Walmart. So stuff like
Try
that.
something, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, trying to help
yeah.
relieve or something. Well, and what a, tough thing for especially a teenager, right? To say like, "Gosh, like, I need help, but, like, am I supposed?" Like, it's a cycle, a legacy, right?
Yeah.
Generational cycles, right? Where it's like, "Gosh, like, medication's bad," and if
Mhm.
we, you know, and it's not bad. I think it's you have to be educated, just like everything, right? Like, don't listen to, so this is the struggle that I've had in the church
Mm.
is, and this is not, um, in any way, like, I don't mean this in any, like, shame-based way, but there's a lot of people in the church, that are very committed to naturopathic
Yes.
ways first, and it's
Yes.
like, that's the only thing. All natural, homegrown,
Right.
no medications unless it's, like, cancer and I need chemo,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Right.
there's, like, extremes, and, how do you feel like the church handles, like, helping encourage people to understand that that's not necessarily the only way that things
Yeah.
can be done?
I think the church as a whole does not do a great job,
Mm,
um, because typically, um, the explanation there is, well, God made these things, and so they're safe to take.
Yeah.
But they forget that God made the doctor that
Yes.
put those chemicals together
Yes.
to make that pill
Yes.
that could help your brain.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
God made the doctor that realized, oh, these chemicals are like that's correlating with when this person's
Mhm.
feeling anxiety, when this person has PTSD. I mean, they literally have these awesome MRI pictures of um, what a brain looks like that's been diagnosed with depression, what a brain looks like that's
Mhm.
been diagnosed with PTSD, and they look wildly different than what a normal brain scan looks like.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so it is physical. And oftentimes the natural stuff, now sometimes that is what sparks doctors to start investigating further, because there are
Mhm.
a couple of things that I tried, one called valerian root for anxiety, one called St. John's wort for
Mhm.
depression. um, and I do believe St. John's wort, it kind of acts the same as an SSRI, it's just not strong enough. um,
Right.
and
Right.
so what the Lord did through a doctor was find a way to make it strong enough to
Mhm.
impact what people are really needing.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think with like that whole naturopath stuff, that's where people get caught up. It's
Yeah.
God created it, it's natural, it grows in the ground, so it's safe.
Mhm.
But God created the doctor who created the medicine.
Exactly, exactly. And we can you can work all things. He works all things, right, for good. So even if the chemical originally maybe was not good for you or caused something else, or we forget that like we are so far removed from the people God created, from Adam and Eve,
Yeah,
from the first two people, our bodies are so far removed
they are.
from those people.
We don't
And
even need our appendix anymore. They needed it.
right.
Right?
Yeah, God knew that was gonna happen, right? Like he knows.
Theologically, we're different.
Yes.
Yeah.
He knew what he was gonna have to prepare us for and what he was gonna have to create in us to protect us from as much as he could from the fallen, broken world that we're in right now.
Right.
And so our bodies are still capable, even with the chemicals and the medications and the things to say, like, nope, let God use my body
Mhm.
and and be dwell within me to
Mhm.
do your good work even in the moments where I'm broken,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
um yeah, it's a really hard thing, and wondering how to help encourage people. I was reading this article or this study, and I can't remember if I've mentioned this before online or whatever, but if I have, it's okay. I always feel I don't want to repeat it, but it's a good thing. So that we may have talked about this last time, but millennials, okay, so that church attendance dropping,
Yeah.
mostly it's the Gen X and baby boomers, right, that are leaving the church, right? And so there's this whole thing about like, well, who is coming to the church? What's the future of the church?
Mhm.
And since COVID, right, like that's the congregation that has been decreasing.
Hmm.
And the population that's increasing is millennials. And the thing about the millennials is that they want to hear stories that prove to them that this is all real,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
they want that the transparency and the authenticity and the realness of, yeah, I like you said, your husband admitted that he was suicidal and he can
Mhm.
relate to teenagers who are in that state. And um, there are so many other depths to that honesty, that this article was saying that, like, if a millennial goes into a church and smells fakeness or insincerity or
Yeah.
cover up or masking of any sort, they're out, right? But if they go in and they're like, no, like, we are real and
Mhm.
we acknowledge where God's working, we acknowledge where we're struggling, we acknowledge where we've been, we acknowledge where we want to go, that's the church that they're like, okay, this is my place.
Right.
And I mean, do you think that that is something that, how do we get the older population? And do you think churches will embrace that?
um, embrace
Just
being
that,
open.
yeah, being open.
Yeah.
Like that pastor, whoever he was, God bless him,
Yeah.
and his congregation. And like, how do we fix that? How do we help them embrace it?
I think that with Gen X, but mostly in the baby boomer and later Gen X
Hmm.
um, folks, those are the people where they did put on the
Yeah.
mask. They felt miserable, but they put on a suit anyway. They,
Hmm.
had their fanciest clothes for Sunday, um, because it was about a presentation. It was about a show almost. And it was the same for the pastor. That was actually, it's funny, um, because that was another strange thing that Aaron faced as a pastor. He had to dress a certain way depending on what church we were at. Yeah. It was like
So strange.
so silly. It's like,
Yeah.
but why? Like, Jesus hung out with a naked woman once. I mean, he
Yep.
gave her clothes, but
Yeah.
like, he didn't care what she looked like.
Mhm.
He hung out with the homeless people and sometimes the super rich that were dressed in beautiful clothes.
Mhm.
But that just shows us that Jesus didn't care about appearance. I mean, and that's also in the Bible so many times.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that goes deeper
Mm,
than just clothes,
yeah.
appearance, keeping up appearances, is not something that should exist in the church.
Mm-mm.
Um, and I think ultimately it falls to the pastor first, the
Mhm.
pastor and other leadership, to be vulnerable.
Mhm.
Um, and there are a lot of good preachers out there that preach the word, um, and they're not, you know, glossing over the touchy subjects and stuff, but they never talk about themselves.
Mhm.
And I think that is a real missed opportunity because the Lord has given us our testimonies for a reason.
Yeah.
And I mean, look at Paul in the Bible. Like,
Mhm.
what an insane, like, if you didn't know his history
Yes.
and who he was before Christ, I, his impact would not have been nearly as meaningful, after Christ. And for
Absolutely.
those of you that might not be familiar,
Yeah.
Paul from the Bible used to kill Christians. He was like on a hunt for them.
Mhm.
And then Jesus radically changed his life. And then he became a Christian.
Mhm.
And, so much so that he was tortured, imprisoned, many times falsely imprisoned,
Mhm.
um, for the gospel, for Christ. Um, and that, because of his past, because of his testimony, makes it so much more impactful. And so I think it starts at leadership. I think leadership needs to be honest, whether it's a current struggle or past struggle. Um, they need to be honest about,
Mhm.
and not everyone has a mental health issue,
No.
but everyone gets stressed.
Mhm.
Everyone worries. Nobody's perfect. So talk about your stress. If you're talking about a sermon that has to do with stress, talk about your stress.
Mhm.
don't make it all about you because that's a whole other issue in church.
There's a happy balance. There's
Yeah, you know.
yes. I've been where there's both, right?
Yeah, and so I think it comes from, top down, first of
Yeah.
all. And then that just creates, a community of
Mm,
genuineness, and then having, like, smaller groups, if it's a big church, having small groups that connect with each other, and are intentional, uh,
mm.
I think are also really important. Um, what do you think? Do you have any ideas?
Yeah. I mean, I think that I love that you said the small group piece. I've been thinking a lot about um, ministry in churches and the concept of plugging in
Yeah.
and connecting with other people. And the hard part about that is um, that if you get in a group, and I don't mean that like I've been in situations, right, where you're just like, oh, like we don't really mesh.
Yeah.
But the church is like, well, you can't go to that group because they're too far away from your house. Or
Mhm.
you can't go to that group because that group is single adults and you're married with kids, right? Like there's too much of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff that happens. And I think that it has to sort of, as awful as this sounds, like organically happen. So I think it's like help encouraging organic connection
Mhm.
and in some way to allow people to feel safe. Because I think if you force the connection, people don't feel safe, then they're not going to talk about their struggles and they're not going to seek help for their struggles because there's the lack of safety.
Right.
And you can't force a group together and say, okay, now go share your deepest, darkest
Right. Right.
secrets. And so if it's like, I'm suicidal, who are they going to, if they're not feeling in a safe place, they're not going to say that out loud. And so, how can we help them to say those things out loud? And how do we get the church go back to the root of the
Mm.
fact that we are God's children and we are all brothers and sisters, and you can say anything to us without judgment. And that's where it's like, can we help the church and the pastors and the leadership get there? And I think, gosh, I feel bad for them sometimes because I know I can only imagine that that's a lot of pressure
It
for
is.
them,
Yeah. Mhm.
you know, to be perfect, to feel like they have
Yeah.
to say it perfect or to not respond in a way that would be considered like what the pastor did with your husband. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I just want to call him and be like, "Are you okay? Just wonder if you're okay." I can't.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just keep thinking about that. I
Yeah.
can't do that.
It's one of the craziest, um,
Yeah.
situations we've experienced, but
Ah.
yeah, I think I know this is alive, but I think it would be super cool to offer training to pastors on
Oh.
how to do
Hey, we can
this.
brainstorm.
Yeah. Or if there was a training out there about,
Yeah.
what to do about that, what to say about that.
Mm,
And I think it
yeah.
comes down to doing our best to emulate the New Testament church
Mm, mhm.
because nobody hid. I mean, they probably did, but
Yeah.
when they were, meeting in houses and stuff like that and talking about
Mhm.
Jesus, like they were being genuine with each other,
Yeah.
and they were, um, I think a big thing that American church misses is community.
Mm, mhm.
Um, rather than it just being like this club you attend on Sundays. Um,
Mhm.
it
And it's
misses
authentic, organic
Yes,
community,
yeah,
not like
it misses
forced,
that.
structured team building.
Yeah, yeah, basically team building has become such a
Yes.
buzzword.
Yes.
Um, But yeah, I think that that is a huge piece of the New
Mm,
Testament church that American church at least has flopped on
yeah,
community.
yeah,
Because when people are living in community, you know, they're going to notice if something's off.
yeah,
And if someone doesn't feel safe enough to say, I feel this way, I feel blank, then hopefully the people that you're in
mm,
community with would be like, hey, what's wrong?
yes,
I'm not going to stop asking until you tell me.
yeah. Like I can tell something's wrong,
Yeah.
even if it's I didn't sleep enough last night,
Right.
right? Like something's wrong, and it's okay to say it. It's
Yeah.
okay. It could
Mhm.
be something really dumb,
Yeah.
and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. We're human, and
Mhm.
dumb is human. Humans are
Yeah. Here to
having
stay.
having dumb things, but they're real things. They're all real, and that's okay.
Right.
And giving ourselves permission. I was thinking about what you said about the Gen Xers and boomers who, went to church with their Sunday best. And I grew up in North Carolina,
Mhm.
and you know it was masking at its finest on
Yeah.
Sunday mornings, and there were some people that were very you could tell very generous in spirit, and very generous in serving, and very generous in happy, right?
Hmm.
Like they wanted to spread the joy of the Lord. They
Mhm.
wanted to serve God. They wanted to serve his people. But
Right.
as long as it looked a certain way,
Yeah.
we never saw the struggle
Mhm.
in that. And I think I say that, like, we just a little bit ago, a few minutes ago, we talked about like how God is the hope in struggle and pain. And if you don't show, if all you ever show is the joy that got the light that God has put inside you, and the
Right.
joy and the happy and the good news and the excitement, right? Like then you're not actually showing God's character to people.
Yeah, you're right.
Because that's where I think people get well, why would God let that happen?
Right.
If
Right.
God was
Right.
good,
Well,
why would he
I
let
got
that
saved,
happen?
but I still feel miserable. So what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Like, why would that person die? Why would I have mental health struggles?
Right.
Why would there be suicide? Why would there be if God was so good? But that's how I feel like that thought gets planted,
Yeah. From
is yeah.
un inauthentic behavior.
Exactly. And it's like, no, like I always say, like, I want people to feel that like on fire moment with God.
Mhm.
Like, I would never wish bad things on anyone, but it's like almost like, oh, but you need those bad things. sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes you
Mhm.
need them, because it's when you're like, oh, God is so, 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 so real,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
And how do we help pastors teach people that?
I think
I got off on a
yeah, they
tangent.
need to know it themselves first.
Yeah, that's true. That's really true. Yeah. I love that idea about teaching them how to help and respond to mental health, but maybe also how to like weave it into their messages without it becoming about them, right? Like
Right. Yeah.
there's like coaching that can be done in that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
Mhm.
plugging the fact that you're a mental health coach, and they should just call you, because you could
They
just
should.
tell them,
I
you
can
could
help
coach them through, like, well, don't do
them.
that, but say this. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, wait a second, that would actually work really, really well. Really, really, really well. I know. What
Yeah.
do you think is the biggest thing that, as someone who goes to church and sits in church every Sunday, and maybe they don't know how to connect with someone, or maybe they look down and don't really look at other people while they're in church, like what would you say to them about how they could just feel the Holy Spirit's nudge to go check in on someone, maybe someone they don't know.
The person who like looks down and stuff, what they can
Yeah,
do.
who's just like, "I'm just here on my own to be at
Yeah.
church and check the box and fill my bucket," right? Like,
Yeah.
how do they seek that accountability?
Well, you're all about to learn that if you do coaching with me, I can be a little bit blunt, and so I'm going to put this bluntly. Um, is that what Jesus would do?
Yeah,
Is that what Jesus would do? Would he just stand there and not pay
right.
attention to anyone around him?
Mm,
Um, because we as believers, that's who we're trying to emulate, right? Is
mm,
that what he would do?
yeah.
And the answer is no. Um,
You're
and
like,
so,
spoiler.
and so then think,
Oh.
what would he do? And what could he do through you?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
the other thing is Jesus knows who we are. He knows when someone is a very shy introvert, and he's not going to have them do what like I, a very open extrovert, would do. But there is something still
Mhm.
that he would have them do. Um, and so essentially I would challenge them to emulate Christ first, and to pray prior to church, prior to Bible study. Lord, use me here.
Mm,
And it doesn't, it doesn't have to be an elaborate prayer. Just that, just Lord,
yeah.
use me here. Um, and He will, but don't ignore Him.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
and it might be a little uncomfortable, but also trust that the Lord knows you
Mm,
in and out, and He's not going to make you, the shy, quiet introvert that's keeping your head down, go up on stage and say something.
yeah.
But he might have you turn next to the girl who's sitting right next to you all by herself, crying, and put a hand on her shoulder.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah. It's so powerful, like, to think about, like,
yeah,
being the church in church.
yeah,
Like, 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 we don't have to go seek it outside and, just being able to ask questions and share information without judgment, without opinion, just with raw, like, grace and love,
mm,
and, it's awesome. It's really awesome.
yeah.
What else do you want people to know about, like, what they should think about, and um, anything else that you think should resonate with the church about mental health?
Um, I think there's just always a story that I point to in the Bible. Um, and it is when, of course, I'm not going to be able to tell you where. It's somewhere. One of the kings, in one of the,
Mhm.
I think it's First Kings, around chapter 19,
If you
maybe.
read, just read both First and
Yeah,
Second
just
Kings,
read
and
them
you'll
both
find
and you'll
it.
find
Yeah.
it. Um, when Ezekiel is running from um, this queen who wants to kill him,
Mhm.
and he is exhausted because he just killed all the prophets of Baal, and that's why she wants to kill him. Um, and so he's exhausted. He is spent. He um, also feels that he's like the only prophet of the Lord in that area, in that
Mhm.
city, that town. So he feels alone as well. And so at one point, while he's quite literally running like through the wilderness away from these people that are trying to kill him, he just sits under a tree and he prays, Lord, kill me. And I think what a lot of people there miss is that is a person who's feeling suicidal.
Mm.
Um, and what I always love to point out is the Lord's response. And he tells him to take a nap, and the Lord provides him food.
Mm.
And I'm like, look at how sweet and kind that is. Not once did the Lord penalize him. Not once did the Lord say, okay, I'll end this for you and take care of this for you. He didn't take away the struggle, but he did provide the rest and sustenance to get through the struggle.
It's beautiful.
I think it is really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the Lord handles mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you know, he loves you in your suffering, and he wants to take care of you. And that's what we see him do with Ezekiel.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It
That's
is.
such a beautiful
No,
picture.
it's not Ezekiel. It's Elijah,
I know.
Nikki.
I was going to say, I'm like, wait, I think, but yep,
Elijah. It's
yep,
Elijah.
yep. I'm
Oh,
glad you got it.
I hope I didn't just lose all credibility.
I know. It's okay. It happens. It happens. See, we're not perfect. Yes, none of us are perfect. None of us. Yes, exactly. We all have tongue
With
slips.
Elijah,
Yes.
somewhere in Kings.
Your E. Yep. Somewhere in Kings. Ezekiel. I was like, Ezekiel wasn't alive.
No, you're right. He wasn't.
No, but that's okay.
Yeah. So anyway,
I was tracking because it was so beautiful. And then at that point, when you said go to sleep, I was like, I think that it's not Ezekiel. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. I love it.
but yeah, that's how God responds.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so why are we responding to God's children in the church any differently?
Right. With
And why even
shame or
are we
judgment.
responding to ourselves any differently?
I know.
Um,
And I love that about our group, right? Like I said, I did a live with Stephanie Carter a couple of weeks ago, and she talked about the time in her life where she was depressed and just crying and anxious and upset and angry, and just had like this level of anger where she just was like, I could have killed him, or killed her, right? Like
right.
she said, like that was in her,
Yeah.
and like, and so where she was open, and Melinda writing the article about her struggle with the church and judgment and mental health and medication, and you and just your passion for it. And like, I just love how open we are. And I hope that, I mean, we are not therapists. We are not, this
No.
is, you'll find this everywhere on all of our stuff, right? Like we are not licensed clinicians. We have a lot of life experience, so we have a lot of opinions, but coaching will allow us, Nikki, especially in her mental wellness coaching, to allow people who aren't in need of clinical care. If you're needing clinical care, one of our other coaches does an excellent how to find a therapist session.
Yeah.
Where if you're like, gosh, I know I need a therapist. Like I know I'm broken beyond just needing some help getting unstuck. I really actually feel like I need someone to walk me through actual healing. Bethany is one of our coaches, and she can help you understand what kind of therapist you need, which is, I think, a really unique offering. And then Nikki offers the mental wellness coaching, and with coaching, what you'll find is, what I hope our clients will find is that same thing with God, like with therapists, or the way God didn't take it away from Elijah. Like we can't take the struggle away, but we can help you navigate what it looks like to function and create habits and actions and choices each day to get through it. And so I think what would you say about your mental wellness coaching? And is there anything in addition that you think people could experience?
Well, I have had some clients that start out with me and then realize that they need a therapist and see me in conjunction with their therapist. And that's fine too. We don't touch on what you and your therapist touch on. We do sometimes, if your therapist gives you homework, I will help keep you accountable to completing that homework. help keep you accountable to attending your therapy sessions, things like that. But I think a lot of my coaching is focused on skills, developing those coping skills, the emotional intelligence, um, to deal with whatever struggles you're going through. And also creating the environment and the community that you need around you. Because, I mean, you could pay me forever. I would be fine with that. But most likely, you're not going to pay me forever. And there's going to
Yes.
be organic community, organic people around you
Yes.
to support you.
Yeah.
And so I do challenge my clients a lot to start developing that.
Yes, absolutely. That's awesome. Well, so we'll wrap up there. And I just to remind everybody, go to nectarfull.com. You can find out all about our new fall promotion that just started yesterday. To book your free discovery call, you'll get a free Bible study. It's a 7-part Bible study that's also available in my book. You'll get the download when you book a discovery call. And then the first 10 people to book the sessions will get a free copy of my book. And so the book is called Empowered by Faith, a Christian women's guide to personal development. And so it talks a lot about like what we're talking about here, like
Mhm.
people thinking like, gosh, like I shouldn't think about myself. I shouldn't want to invest in myself because that's not giving God the honor. And it's actually super God honoring. And the book walks you through the God honoring way to do that. So I'm excited to
With the
share
first
that.
10
Hmm?
people, the first
What's that?
10 people.
The first 10 people to book like the package will get a free copy of the book.
That's
And
cool.
then, yeah, and everybody gets the Bible study if you book a discovery call.
Sure.
And then, but you get the whole book, an actual book I'll mail to you if they book the package. And then in November, anybody who books the package, I'm going to do a free personal development workshop with everyone who books that package.
Love it.
Yeah. So come on, join us
Yeah.
and invest. Yeah, I think this is such an important topic, and I'm so
Mhm.
grateful I got to sit with you here
Yeah,
today.
thanks
And I
for
can't wait to do it again. And yeah.
okay.
Okay.